Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and are we in for another falsified pandemic, quote unquote, as we see evidence of a new Event 201 style simulation? We have Bill Gates' GAVI getting further promotion by the U.S. government and the big pharma lobby. House bill readies $3.35 billion for future global health threat orchestration. H.R. 8595 keeps Bill Gates vaccine syndicate Gavi plugged into U.S. funding pipeline. No one should be shocked. The Maha movement was always a joke. They never meant to actually come in and stop any of the stuff that's happening. Obviously, as we see them reassess the Yoga Mac chemical in food, they are pushing for further pesticides and, of course, helping support Monsanto and Bayer in their removal of cancer warnings from Roundup on their products. Really evil stuff. And of course, one of the big things right now is Hantavirus, which I've been talking about for quite some time. And there's a lot being developed on that. I mean, I've first talked about Hantavirus, I think, in the 2010s on this channel. But we have Tedros of the World Health Organization announcing they successfully conducted a global pandemic simulation similar to Event 201. We're going to go into this and more today, my friends. Before we do, I urge people to check that link below. For rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. Use code JOSH, J-O-S-H, and save money on your order. There is a big Memorial Day sale going on right now, so jump on that to get the best possible savings. And again, it says start your wellness ritual now. I highly recommend people go and check that out in the description below. We also have Medicamentum Authentica Shilajit. Now, this is something I'm really excited about, and actually, I may as well show you guys on screen here. I have Shilajit right here, which Dr. Andrew Kaufman sent me. If you use code WAM10, W-A-M-10, you'll get 10% off on your order. This is really cool stuff. I love the packaging too, but we have this Shilajit here in this box, and it comes with a metal spoon. Really cool stuff. It is amazing for youthfulness, for energy, for your ability to keep a good libido, for procreation. And of course, there are many other details of this that I want to go into with Dr. Andrew Kaufman himself on this channel soon. But nonetheless, I urge people to check that out in the description. It is sourced from 16,000 plus feet in the Himalayas, and it is rigorously tested for all the toxic stuff, heavy metals, fillers, etc. 35-day try it, feel it, love it guarantee. I highly recommend people get on this today. Go and check that out in the links below. Again, that's code WAM10, W-A-M-10. Let's get into this. So, there are so many targets on our head when it comes to health. And it's not just COVID. It wasn't just monkeypox or bird flu. It's not just the pesticides. It's not just the fluoride in the water. Not just the spraying of the skies. All these things correlate. But we have House Bill readies $3.35 billion for future global health threat orchestration. H.R. 8595 keeps Bill Gates vaccine syndicate Gavi plugged into U.S. funding pipeline. A newly released House Appropriations bill would funnel $3.35 billion into an expanding international outbreak orchestration and global health threat infrastructure tied to vaccine campaigns, infectious disease programs, emergency response systems, and foreign public health expansion, while keeping the Gates-backed Gavi vaccine network plugged into the U.S. taxpayer funding pipeline. According to the House Oversight Committee's final COVID report, the international pandemic orchestration response to COVID-19 became an unprecedented global failure marked by censorship, scientifically unsupported mandates, mass economic destruction, historic learning loss, public health misinformation, unconstitutional pressure campaigns, catastrophic fraud, vaccine mandate coercion, and the expansion of centralized emergency response systems that the committee itself concluded caused immeasurable harm to Americans. Despite that catastrophic track record, the federal government is now moving to further institutionalize and financially expand the same international outbreak orchestration architecture that produced many of the most destructive pandemic-era policies and consequences in modern history. The new legislation, H.R. 8595, was introduced last month by U.S. Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, a Republican from Florida, as the National Security Department of State and Related Programs Appropriations Act of 2027. Now, of course, we have Tulsi Gabbard just stepping down. People say, oh, well, what about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the guy who was, of course, confirmed by a pharma-funded house? I've been saying from the beginning, like, this stuff doesn't just happen. Like, the government doesn't create these issues and then come in and solve them for you. And no matter what kind of hopium they try to present to you in their election campaigns, like they actually care about you and the children and the injuries from the injections, they don't. They don't. I think that's blatantly obvious. However, we still have a lot of people saying, just wait, look what they're doing. Look what they... RFK Jr. is pushing measles vaccines on people right now. I mean, like, it's ridiculous. And wearable tracking and tracing devices, which will tell the government whenever you have a cold or if you cough, which allows them to come and force medicate you. I mean, it's insanity, and it's part of the new digital ID system. So RFK Jr. went from being against all this kind of stuff to, of course, being in favor of it, because obviously there's blackmail on him. And if you know anything about him, and I know a lot about him from his private life, you know that he certainly is blackmailed. I mean, there's no doubt. He's been open about the things he's done that are less than good in the past, but I think it goes deeper than what has been claimed. Buried inside the bill's global health program section, it says, is a sweeping framework authorizing billions for internationalized public health operations under the banner of global health activities. The legislation states, and I quote, for necessary expenses to carry out the provisions of Chapter 1 and 10 of Part 1 of the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 for global health activities, $3.350 billion. Now, that's billion dollars, $3.35 billion. You could see it on the paperwork there. The bill then outlines how those funds may be used. According to legislation, taxpayer money can be used for, and I quote, training, equipment, and technical assistance to build the capacity of public health institutions and organizations in developing countries. That could involve mass injection. That could involve digital IDs and the technocratic system that I talk about all the time. Meaning, the bill is not merely funding emergency humanitarian aid, it's funding the continued build-out of international public health infrastructure capable of coordinating surveillance systems, outbreak response mechanisms, immunization campaigns, emergency response networks, and foreign health crisis operations across multiple nations. By the way, this article is from modernity.news, which I've been appreciating a lot of the work of lately. The legislation also explicitly authorizes programs tied to disaster preparedness, training for health crises, and programs to prevent, prepare for, and respond to unanticipated and emerging global health threats. The same section additionally funds immunization programs, infectious disease programs, HIV/AIDS programs, tuberculosis, malaria, polio, and other infectious diseases. Most notably, the bill explicitly keeps the Bill Gates-backed GAVI, Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunization, vaccine coalition eligible to receive U.S. taxpayer money through the broader global health funding pool. Imagine that. It never ends, my friends. The legislation states funds appropriated under the paragraph may be made available for the United States contributions to the GAVI Alliance. It's right there in black and white. GAVI operates as one of the central vaccine procurement. I should be able to talk better after all these years of doing videos. And deployment hubs, it says, inside the international vaccination system, coordinating with governments, pharmaceutical corporations, NGOs, international organizations, and public-private health partnerships to push mass vaccination campaigns worldwide. The alliance was launched in 2000 with major backing from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is also majorly behind the rollout of the digital IDs in Sierra Leone and elsewhere. Significantly, the bill's language does not place a fixed cap on how much of the broader global health appropriation could ultimately flow into GAVI-related operations. Last year, HHS pulled funding from GAVI after HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. accused the organization of ignoring peer-reviewed vaccine safety evidence, silencing dissent during COVID-19, promoting COVID-19 shots for pregnant women, and continuing to heavily push the DTP vaccine despite a 2017 study concluding that the shot may kill more children from other causes than it saves from diphtheria, tetanus, or pertussis. We've gone into that many times, but alas, it is back in full swing now. And of course, no one should be surprised. This has been, I mean, they say, oh, well, sit on your hands, elect Trump, he's going to end all this, while pushing the MAHA movement, which again, pharma-funded house confirms RFK Jr. just like a military funded house. Confirmed, of course, Tulsi Gabbard. And we see the firings across the board now. And of course, on top of that, we have RFK Jr. pushing the measles shots, pushing the wearables, like I said. And on top of that, looking the other way as they promote the creation of mRNA pesticides on your food and mRNA injections among animals, and the shutdown of markets across the board over bird flu fears. I mean, and now we have Hantavirus, which I'll go into in a moment. But again, this is exactly what I've been warning of. We cannot have this hopium thinking that they're going to save us. I want to quickly mention, and I'm not paid by them, but I support what they do. LearnTheRisk.org. LearnTheRisk.org. It's started by a friend of mine. It started by Brandy Vaughn, who was a Merck whistleblower who passed away mysteriously in December of 2020 as the vaccines came out. And then it was taken over by her best friend, Tina, who has been doing great work there for years and trying to get information out on what these injections, all of them, the whole childhood schedule, everything is doing to people, and putting up billboards, putting up signs. She doesn't fall for the controlled op of the fake natural health movement, which isn't really talking about, these controlled opposition figures among the so-called natural health movement. So I really appreciate what they do. LearnTheRisk.org. Again, I'm not promoted by them. I'm not paid by them. If you use code WHAM over there, I'm still not paid. I want them to get some support for the work that they do. So if you use code WHAM, W-A-M, you'll save some money on some of the orders over there. But again, I say again, I repeat, I'm not paid by them. I just want them to get that information out. Anyway, it could save, some families' lives, parents seeing that with their kids, and it could stop them from mass injecting them. But I want to talk about this happening here because, of course, we've had multiple, we had Operation Polaris, Operation Pegasus. Both of them were massive simulations of disease outbreak, one of them the largest ever in history. And, of course, Bill Gates has been involved. And, of course, RFK Jr. and Donald Trump have both said that they are interested in, they want to work with Bill Gates. They want to work with Albert Bourla, all these people. They've had meetings together, which seem to go very well, unfortunately. You don't want those to go well. And Trump said he's interested in a pandemic or an Operation Warp Speed 2.0, as he says. This is from the World Health Organization director, and that he announced that they successfully conducted a global pandemic simulation similar to Event 201. Let's hear what he says here.
We established the WHO BioHub here in Switzerland, again, as Federal Councillor said, which has now shared 165 samples. And fifth, to enhance emergency workforce capacity, we established the Global Health Emergency Corps, which recently ran its second simulation exercise involving 600 health emergency experts and 25 partner organizations from 26 countries and territories. And six, we recognized that we needed to reform the governance of global health security to bring everything together into a cohesive whole.
Yeah, and it's going to be under a digital ID, a big umbrella over everything. The exercises has simulated the international spread of fictional new bacterium and tested global emergency response systems ahead of a potential real-world crisis. Around 600 health emergency experts, 25 partner organizations, and participants from 26 countries and territories took part in these simulations. So very interesting. As you know, we reported back, so this is from September 2024, Korea University and Moderna had collaborated to develop an mRNA-based hantavirus vaccine. Now, there's a lot of fear around that, and of course, they're saying the same thing as the World Health Organization said at the beginning of the COVID stuff. There's nothing to worry about. Remember, January of 2020, they were saying a very different thing than the fear-mongering that came after, so it made it appear as though that they were caught by surprise, which they weren't. And SARS-CoV-2 has never been isolated from a single human being ever. It's only been cultured in monkey kidney cells attached to a computer simulation. They threw a bunch of antibiotics at a petri dish until they found what they wanted. And polymerase chain reaction tests don't test for specific illnesses. It's a bridge of a bunch of illnesses, and it's based on the essentially the echoes, the static of the test at 40 cycles or more. It's impossible to tell what anything is. So again, it's very fraudulent, but that led to the mass rollout of those injections. And now in 2024, they said that they were rolling out this or studying hantavirus mRNA injections, which again aren't really vaccines. You could call it a vaccine, but it's not. And it's developed by a team led by Professor Ho Wang Lee in Korea University. But of course, they've been working on this as far back as 2024 as well in Texas at the University of Texas. Now, they've already, the World Health Organization has said that hantavirus is a potential disease X. Interestingly, we see this development a couple years ago and people are acting like, oh, they're now just working on some vaccine. It's nonsense. I feel like I'm the only one that's been reporting on this and this background of mRNA injections for hantavirus, because now we're seeing reports from May 23rd, as of today, Moderna's hantavirus ship comes in. It says, just before the outbreak on the cruise ship MV Hondius, Moderna announced that it was working on a hantavirus vaccine. No, they didn't. It was September of 2024. Again, I reported on it back then too. Once a hantavirus outbreak was announced, Moderna's stock prices soared. How convenient. But again, I want to remind people in alternative media, dig deeper. Dig deeper. This has been going on for a long time. So this idea that it's just starting to do this, no, it isn't just starting to do this. They were doing it. Here's an article, again, September 14th, 2024. From Outbreak News today. You can find it. And there's also many studies from the University of Texas as well, and papers from back then talking about their mRNA injection for hantavirus. So again, I just want to make sure that people understand that this is deeper than people claim it is, and it's not as recent as people claim. I even went into my first video on this over on Rumble, called Breaking New Hantavirus Plandemic. 3 die on cruise ship. Government previously weaponized hantavirus. I said in that video, which I guess came out 19 days ago, so May 3rd of 2026, so 20 days ago, I reported on it at the time that, of course, this was being weaponized, and this, I even talked about stories from, let's see, 2012. September 12th, 2012. I had these backed up. But alas, people, I guess, ignored it. I don't know. It's unfortunate. But this is, as we know, and this is an article from 2022 that I had saved that I also talked about last time from Natural News. A international group funded by Bill Gates warns that one of 11 new viruses will become next pandemic. And alas, one of those was hantavirus, which has a long incubation period and apparently spreads quickly. I don't believe that this is even a thing. I think this is fear-mongering in order to force people. They might poison people in another way, but to force people into the new lockdown scenario or into compliance or into fear enough to allow crazy things to be pushed forward, which would not shock me at all because it's already been done. People say, well, people are awake, but people will still fall for the social spectrum, and they'll be more afraid of this one because more people will die, and they will, I don't put it past the government for poisoning the tap water and doing something like that to kill a bunch of people so that they can say, look at this. Because with the COVID thing, we actually saw less deaths in 2020 than we saw in the flu season in 2018, and of course all the flu deaths disappeared in places like Canada in 2020, interestingly enough, in correlation with this. But and they're like, because everyone's wearing masks, then why is COVID up? If that's the correlation here, like suddenly the flu disappears, but then and by the way, the particles from the flu are smaller. Anyway, it's just so, all of it's silly. We all know that, but people woke up to it. But now they can say, hey, what if they actually rolled out something where people actually died at a higher rate? Then, hey, everyone has to follow along with these lockdowns or they're literally killing someone, which is exactly what the World Economic Forum has been pushing for years, where they said that, COVID, on their page, My Carbon in 2022, COVID was a litmus test for compliance to bring in technocracy. But one of those ways that they do that is through pandemics in order to bring in digital IDs and allocate injections, which we saw before. And now they've done the training on it. And now they have another Event 201 style simulation. Does this correlate? It's a question worth asking. And what will the illness actually be? One of the things that the injections apparently caused was hantavirus is one of the side effects of the injections that they say could happen to some degree. But I think in general, it just destroys your immune system and you get sick more often than they could call it whatever they want and then put you on a ventilator as they did before. Or they could literally just poison tap water, poison food, which they're certainly out in the public doing. Now, this has a spelling error or a typo on it, but it's an article from 2025. So this is September 23rd, 2025. Lethal hantavirus with 30% fatality rate now aerosolized by U.S. military and set for release for next pandemic. So this was by S.D. Wells back in for Natural News back in September of 2025, long before any of this fear-mongering popped up again, that these rat droppings and rat urine will aerosolize in the air. It's a really easy thing to just put some kind of neurotoxin in the air and kill people with it. And I wouldn't put it past them. And why is the government weaponizing this? Because it's really hard to catch, they say. Well, let's make it more easy for people to catch. Why would you ever want to do that? The work was conducted at the University of Nebraska Medical Center using a biological aerosol reaction chamber, and sparked alarm because aerosolization is a core step in converting a pathogen into a respiratory hazard, and because the research was financed by a Pentagon agency. We've gone over this in our last video. I'm not going to read this whole article again. You can find it on our Rumble and BitChute at World Alternative Media. Again, new hantavirus pandemics, 3 dying cruise ship. You could see that from 20 days ago. Okay. So we have way too many things correlating here, don't we, my friends? And this is happening as we have major moves made to just find new ways to poison us. House votes to remove pesticide liability shield from Farm Bill. Farmville is a game. Farm Bill is what's happening here, which actually really does in many ways, because we see farms under attack as it is and food shortages as it is. The new ration system will need to be able to remove these things. Or remove remove pesticide liability shield from the Farm Bill. The House Representatives voted 280-142 on Thursday, April 30th, to approve an amendment by Representative Anna Paulina Luna that removes a provision from the Farm, Food, and National Security Act of 2026 that would have shielded pesticide manufacturers from lawsuits over the health risks. That's great. There's a lot of push back over this. And, of course, that comes from both sides. But while this is happening, so we hear about this pesticide liability shield being removed, we have really sketchy stuff happening with the FDA, with the CDC, the EPA, regarding Roundup, regarding Monsanto and Bayer. Bayer promised EPA Chief Zeldin a small thanks for removing cancer warnings about Roundup. They will be able to get around certain rules on this if they remove the rules in order to then, in the case of these food rations to come, which I guarantee will happen with these shortages that are manufactured, they can come in and say, well, we can give people this poisonous food because it could be rolled out at a faster rate, it could be grown faster, it will be grown bigger, and therefore this Franken food will be more available to people, therefore we could feed people and stop the starvation that they caused in the first place. Bayer promised to provide a small thanks to EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin for removing warnings about Roundup, the company's herbicide that has been the subject of tens of thousands of cancer lawsuits, according to internal emails revealed at a congressional hearing on Tuesday. And by the way, Trump has just pushed forward the ability for Bayer to continue to put this stuff into the food supply and has allowed mass processing of the food supply, despite the claims by the MAHA movement that this would come to an end. Bayer promised to provide a small thanks to U.S. Environmental Protection Agency EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin for removing warnings about Roundup, the company's herbicide that has been the subject of tens of thousands of cancer lawsuits, according to internal emails revealed at a congressional hearing Tuesday. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said she obtained the emails, which were written by one of Zeldin's senior advisors through a Freedom of Information Act request. Can't stand AOC, but the emails speak for themselves. The emails, she said, show Zeldin has a conflict of interest with one of the world's largest companies that has fought for years to not be held liable for its product. The email from Zeldin's senior advisor references a situation that started years ago when California required the active ingredient in Roundup, glyphosate, to be labeled a known carcinogen. However, a federal appeals court struck down the warning. Then last year, the EPA updated its webpage on glyphosate and produced a letter stating it would not approve a label for Roundup that included the warning it causes cancer. So much for that MAHA movement, my friends, hey? So much for this hopium that I kept being called black-pilled for saying it will not come to fruition. They want us dead. They're not going to suddenly stop that because some guy who says some things on podcasts is going to then get into office and change everything. Give me a break. Are people that new to this system? This system is a parasitic system that feeds off of you, and in some ways will feed you information that seems good, so people continue to support that parasite with the food, the sustenance it needs, and then come in and continue to suck your blood and suck your life force dry. Bayer used the letter in its appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, which heard the company's argument on Monday that it should have legal immunity for such claims. And I quote, "We have internal emails from your agency saying that Bayer wanted to thank you and your agency for removing support for California's warnings because their case before the Supreme Court hinges on you not warning the American people and withdrawing your support on glyphosate," Ocasio-Cortez said at the Tuesday hearing. "Do you understand the conflict of interest that is before the American people right now, Mr. Zeldin?" Zeldin did not directly respond and said his agency has a review of glyphosate coming out later this year. Maybe they can drink it in a cup like one of the Monsanto CEOs was once asked to do in an interview after he said, it's safe to drink. Yeah, well, here's a cup of it. The review is taking a while because the Supreme Court is making a decision this week and Congress is voting this week on legal immunity. Now, they have gotten that legal immunity and they have allowed this to be pushed forward. And again, it's another betrayal by the claimed Make America Great Again mega base, the Maha Make America Healthy Again base. No one should be surprised. Meanwhile, FDA to reassess safety of yoga mat chemical in food and more. Remember when Subway got in all that trouble for that yoga mat chemical in their bread about, 15 years ago or so? Maybe it was 20. No, I think it was 15. They removed this chemical. The bread changed. It actually got smaller. Shrinkflation. Not really footlongs, is it? And they got in a bunch of trouble for this, but now the Defender's Government Newswatch has looked into all of this and determined that now we have the FDA openly throwing aside the safety issue for food chemicals in favor of food chemicals. Again, the lobby is big, my friends. The FDA said it would reassess the safety of food chemicals, butylated hydroxytoluene. They always make these, it's chemical compound, so it's a combination of multiple chemical words. BHT, though, is what it's most known as. And azodicarbonamide, ADA, as the agency finalizes. If you can't pronounce it, should it be in your food? Honest question. As the agency finalizes the plan to review ingredients based on the risk to public health, the agency issued 2 requests for information regarding the use and safety of BHT and ADA. BHT is used as a preservative in frozen meals, breakfast cereals, chewing gum, and meat products. Meanwhile, ADA is sometimes called a yoga mat chemical for its use of foam-like plastics. Is used as a dough conditioner in bread making and a whitening agent in cereal flour. The announcement is the latest move by the FDA to reassess approval of ingredients as Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. claims a lack of transparency in the current approval process. The agency has also launched reassessments of meat preservatives, BHA, and the rarely used orange bee food dye. Now, really creepy stuff. Why do they want this? Why do they want Parmaquat and Ferroquat in your food and chloroquat? There's all the quats. These things cause children to stop themselves from being able to hit puberty. It's a very strange chemical to put in someone's food. In fact, it causes girls to get testosterone. And again, this is another example of that move towards a trans environment here in the transhumanist environment. Why are they putting that in food? And why did Biden push to have more of it put in food after the studies showed the dangers of it? And then why is under now Trump pushing, these food chemicals like yoga mat chemicals? Why are they pushing for mRNA to be sprayed on the food supply as far as crops go? Why are they supporting Monsanto so much, or Bayer now? These questions should be asked. Will they be answered? Probably not, because we are just the slaves that are here to take whatever beating the government gives us. And they'll say, well, you should be lucky you took this beating, because instead of getting beaten twice a day, you're now getting beaten once a day. And people go, this is so good. I really appreciate only being beaten once a day. I don't think anyone should be beaten at all. And of course, this administration, with everything from Epstein to injections to, war to spending to not giving a damn about inflation and the economy, destroying gas prices, the supply chain, all this kind of stuff. Mass surveillance, FISA 702, all this kind of stuff, facial recognition, social credit, AI, all this stuff. And then, pushing for extremely deadly chemicals in the food supply. It's just very, very frustrating, but not surprising for people like us who've been aware of the overall agenda to poison and kill people for a long time, the eugenics agenda. So is there another plandemic coming? Possibly. Could they get away with it? Absolutely. People say, no, they can't. People are awake. Absolutely, they can get away with it, and they will. And they will get away with more wars, as they currently are, because people will always jump to whatever level they can to defend it, or the people that are against it don't have any power anyway. See, the system is creating emergencies to bring in emergency orders, order out of chaos. And the solution is you as an individual withdrawing from that system. However, most people want some easy patch-up work where someone comes and gives you something for free that is going to save you. And that's not the way it works. In fact, the government will try to give you so-called solutions for the problems they created in the first place for free, quote-unquote. Again, Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, repeat. But that is obviously not an actual solution. And I saw a comment on one of my recent videos, it was on Rumble. The guy says, all the solutions you give cost money. Yeah, no shit. Things cost money in life. I mean, are we pushing communism here? No. We have a situation where it affects our life, and everything in life basically costs money except for love and happiness. I mean, seriously. Oh, I have to buy something. Well, you're going to be selling your soul to the state for their new system of technocracy and control, or you spend a little bit of money now and you aren't dependent on them later. But yeah, you have to buy food. If you wanted things just given to you, just wait for the government to do that then. It's really silly, and I get this a lot. I get so many people saying, well, why would you tell us a solution that costs money? Do you have any other ideas? Because as far as I'm concerned, unless you want communism, it's not going to work out any other way. And the whole basis of humanity is individualism, independence, self-responsibility, freedom. These things are synonymous. And the state depends on your dependence to survive. Their lifeblood, their lifeline is you being dependent on them. Are you dependent on banks? Are you dependent on grocery stores? Are you impoverished by the inflation system? Are you dependent on their grid? Are you dependent on their water, which they poison you with? Are you dependent on their roads and their sidewalks and all these kinds of things that they've put people into the mix of, because nothing could ever be private, because they say, oh, the private sector is so greedy, which it can be, of course, but we're seeing that with corporatism, which is a correlation with the state. But what's more greedy than a state that says, we know what's best and we're going to steal all your money, nothing voluntary at all? Under the private sector, at least you could voluntarily say, I want that or I don't want that. Under the state, you don't have that ability. They just say, you have to do this or else we'll put you in prison. We're going to steal your money to do things that make you worse off all the time and then come in as a solution to those problems. And people go, yeah, that's good because we need that, or else greedy people are going to do things with our money. Like, what kind of drugs are people really on? Well, actually, SSRIs, I guess. People are on a lot of drugs. We're dealing with a health crisis, with a demoralization crisis that has caused mass depression, a mental health crisis. We are seeing a drug crisis. We are seeing, of course, economic crisis. We are seeing weather modification, and we are seeing war, and we are seeing just, as Orwell said, if you want to destroy civilization, you have to start from the inside. And demoralizing people is a great start. It's the fall of an empire. It's all by design. To shift into the new empire, the new world order, which will be that technocratic hell that we've been warning of. So people go, this is so negative. It's so doom and gloom. It's reality. And if you don't want to accept it, don't accept it then. I don't care. I want to get people out there awake so that people make the right choices so that they don't fall into this great reset system. And if, a lot of people say, well, it's too negative for me. Okay, fine. Sit on your hands and allow these things to happen to you. Because I find the most positives come out of understanding the negatives. I've often said, imagine you're in a tribe a few hundred years ago and you're walking down a trail with your tribe members and you're being stalked by a lion and you see the lion. So you tell everyone, hey, there's a lion following us. What, do they all go, okay, Bill, you're so negative. You're so black-pilled. We're not listening to you. That's crazy. It's so negative. Why are you so negative all the time? And then they're sleeping one night and they're eaten alive. Or you could take proactive measures knowing that these are negative things. Okay, we're being tracked. This is part of life. There are things that happen, and let's do something about it. That's the move I want to make. Be proactive. But no one has to go along with that. And it's evident that a lot of people don't go with that move. They instead want to wait until it's too late. So as I close it off, as always, my friends, we have solutions. I urge you to check out Medicamentum Authentica Shilajit by Dr. Andrew Kaufman. Again, code WAM10, WAM10. I urge people to check out that link in the description. RNCstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center. We have a link in the description for that as well. Your source for Laetrile Online, made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. Use code JOSH, J-O-S-H, and save money on your order. As always, the dependence situation, exactly what I've been talking about. If you go to heavensharvest.com/WAM, W-A-M, and use code WAM, W-A-M, 25% off you'll get from these amazing products, including long-term storable food that's non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, books on how to get started. Again, there's freeze-dried food. This is a no-brainer, so you don't end up dependent on their injections later, dependent on their system of poison food. Go and check out heavensharvest.com/WAM. Use code WAM. Again, 25% off is crazy. You're saving versus inflation. And you also have the world's first currency, food, at your fingertips, so you aren't dependent on that system down the road. I also urge people to check out firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/. It has to be that exact same link. It's in the description of the video. There you could avoid the banking system, the CBDC system, the digital ID system to a great extent, and protect yourself from inflation and bank collapse. You could buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium there, hold it in your hands, put it in a vault, or put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system. Again, schedule an appointment at that link for a free consultation with our friend Mark Gonzalez, and you'll also get a complimentary investors package there as well. Let him know in the comments of the forum that you found him at World Alternative Media or WAM, W-A-M. And of course, very important, another health thing right here, because we're under attack by frequencies all the time. You can get a Wave Watch 2.2 at the link in the description. Using code WAM will get you over $100 off on this. It's 1,250 frequencies on your wrist. No Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no EMFs. It helps you soothe your nerves, boost energy, enhance cellular function, and improve sleep. It's endorsed by people like Dr. Brian Ardis and Dr. Motley. So all those things are in the description below. I want to mention one more thing, which is vni.life/WAM, W-A-M, where you could use code WAM15, W-A-M-15, and save 15% on your order, including things, these are a bunch of super supplements, but this includes Protovite. Protovite is 100 plus vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients, and I've talked about it before, and I'll show you again. So this is a before and after. This is a circulation of your blood before taking Protovite. Red blood cells are dormant, and they've lost their negative charge. White blood cells are tiny, and then 5 minutes after taking it, red blood cells are freely flowing. The negative charge has been restored, and the white blood cells are 4 times their size. This is in 5 minutes. This usually takes like a month to do. But vni.life/WAM, W-A-M, and code WAM15 will get you this 15% off among many other supplements, which, by the way, if you subscribe over there, you'll save 20% overall on your order. As always, go find us on Upscrolled at @WorldAltMedia. Check out our link for livelongerformula.com/WAM, W-A-M, and get that instant access to the free masterclass with, again, longevity expert and natural health practitioner Christian Yordanov. You'll get instant access to his masterclass and a free metabolic function assessment there. Let him know that he found him at WAM, W-A-M. As we close this off, I appreciate all the support we could get. We need your help, and we appreciate those who have donated to our GoGetFunding.com campaign over the years. This is about a 5 or 6 year old campaign, and you guys have kept us up and running this far. We still need help because, of course, things are expensive, and it's hard to keep this operation running. As you can see, we have a whole new desk and everything, which was actually quite cheap. It was about $150 for this desk. But alas, it's hard to get everything up and running, paying for internet, paying for rent, paying for food, paying for electricity, paying for all these things, and having to get a new laptop because our laptop crashed, and my phone crashed on the same day as my laptop crashed. And I mean, my goodness, we've been through the ringer this past couple months, but we appreciate the support because we need it because we're under attack. There's no doubt. And by the way, if you subscribe on Patreon or Subscribestar, $5 a month or more will get you exclusive content, including our replay of our full live show, which is an hour to an hour and a half long every Sunday. If you don't catch it live, the only way to find the full show is on Patreon, Subscribestar, as well as on X at @WorldAltMedia for subscribers only. So please go and check that out. Find our PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com. We have a Bitcoin address here, which you could scan on the screen or check out in the description of the video in text form. We also have a Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you can donate in, if you please, including privacy coins. And we have a Teespring store with a bunch of merchandise. So we appreciate all the support we can get. And as always, my friends, we're on Telegram, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Brighteon, at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. And on the Bad Guys TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms, except for Spotify, where, of course, we are banned. Hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. And as always, my friends, live freely, live by example. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.